Guys, the Ukrainian government has tracked down the heroic crew of the Bradley that took on Russia's elite main battle tank. And their story is actually pretty wild. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's break down who these guys are, what their tactics were, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to gloat a little bit because I got part of the story right. Let's get into it. Okay, I guess we could use some...
Ці два воїни 47-ї окремої механізованої бригади. Командир і навідник Бредлі Сергій та механік-водій Олекс.
Okay, this is crazy, by the way. This is a commander, gunner, and a driver. That's it. That's who's running this entire vehicle. This was two dudes. I think a main battle tank usually has 3 to 4 crew.
Олександр. Упритул ворожий танк вони бачили вперше.
Там реально сердечко почало калатати.
Це був лише другий їхній спільний виїзд. Сергій у грудні тільки повернувся.
This is crazy, right? That these guys only got thrown together for one previous mission. And he just got back from training in Germany. So this is a soldier who was fairly recently trained up on the Bradley. But this is a testament to the fact that with just a couple weeks of experience, right, this crew was able to go toe to toe. And, you know, sometimes I'm skeptical of the way the Army trains. But the reality is the proof is in the pudding. This was a all or nothing situation for these guys, really fighting for their lives against a tank that could have just really put holes in them like Swiss cheese. And these guys delivered. So, you know, credit where credit's due. Whoever those trainers are, Germany needs to give them a good big bullet on their OER.
З навчань у Німеччині.
Я вам не передам, що...
Okay, wait, I've got to like blur this out or skip past it. Well, I'll do it later.
Танка в приціл. Дай Боже, щоб я побачив.
Even in training, he was thinking to himself, I really hope I don't see a tank in these sites. Because I'm sure they tell them, like, what you got to know what your Bradley can and can't do. You know, and again, I draw on us signing for a bunch of NRAPs and ASVs. And I'm going to be honest, nobody told me dick about the ASV's capabilities. I think I may have gotten like a 30-minute like little block of instruction on it, maybe in my officer training, but that might be it. So, you know, sometimes you don't get these sort of, sometimes you just have to learn by doing. So at least the Germans had the good sense to tell these guys what sort of fights they should be picking.
Танка в приціл. І так склалося, що побачив. Занадто близько. Там же ж перший екіпаж.
So I think when he references there was another crew that came first, I think that is a reference to the second Bradley that we know is in the fight.
У них щось не вийшло. Тоді прийшлось нам на характері туди заїхати. Пили все підряд. Спочатку були бронебійні, потім теж...
So this is interesting. So they opened up with anti-armor, which is probably a reference to depleted uranium or sabot rounds. A round that they'll put in the autocannon that's meant to punch through armor. Now, here's the thing. The anti-armor can't actually punch through Russian tank armor, or at least it supposedly isn't able to. Again, I'm always skeptical because sometimes the Russians will say their armor is made to a certain quality, and then the actual material that gets bolted on there is a cheap substitute. So, but technically, I believe the autocannons, even their depleted uranium rounds, won't punch through at least the front armor of the main battle tank.
У нас виникли труднощі, але, так сказати, коли...
Okay, wait, I love this. I played video games. I remembered everything. Yeah, that's right. My guy back at the... we talked about this earlier, right? The gunner inside relies on a camera system, and so he's looking through a camera at his target reticle. So leaning on his time as an elite gamer, you know, he was able to stay calm and collected.
Сповнив все, коротше, і як бити ті танки, і куди бити.
Both how to hit them and where, which is just... It's just perfect. You can't write a better story than this.
Бо, я мав його ціною. Із-за того, що в мене були проблеми з бронебійними, я просто наче...
This is what I thought was the best part. It says, due to issues with the anti-armor, right? They alluded to some kind of issue. I suspect it's talking about like a feeding issue or something, because I've heard that actually there's a pretty bad shortage and they've ramped up production of a lot of these rounds, but... So I think maybe they're using very old anti-armor rounds or just not properly maintained armor rounds. And so they start feeding them in. They probably have a jam. So then they have to switch to regular rounds. So his strategy is to blind the tank, which is what I talked about in my earlier video. I was like, the tank hasn't been destroyed. It's been blinded. But if you blind every avenue that the Russians have to see the battlefield, then you've killed the tank without having to actually like punch holes in the armor. You can see, let's see, right here. Here's a pretty good illustration. I think it's a model of a T90, but it still is about right. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get you this pulled up here. Here's a T90. Basically, this is a blown up version. Oh, sorry, this is a T80. Let's back it up. I think this is your T90. Yeah. Nope. Come on. There we go. Yeah, your T90. So you can see it actually has them kind of blown up here. Optics sitting on top of the tank here and here. So these two boxes are what he was going for, aiming for those tiny targets. Again, like something out of a video game, right? Aiming for just these tiny little targets on the tank. But if you can take them out, he can blind it.
Щоб його робити сліпим, щоб він звідти не уїхав.
Олександр
Okay, this is also wild, guys. This is absolutely insane.
Бредлі пересів після звичайного авто. Раніше він був водієм у батальйоні забезпечення.
Нічого, машину.
This dude was driving a regular car, guys. A regular car doing supply runs before he got crewed up in the Brad, which is absolutely insane.
З машини пересіли на Бредлі?
Ну так.
Сказав би, що він в мене буде головніший, чим я хоч і командир, і навідник, тому що якщо він мене завезе і вивезе, це...
If he gets me out, I'm happy. Yeah, that's guys, that is how you feel about your drivers, man. Listen, a good driver is worth like 5 good gunners, okay?
Вже щастя.
Сергій же був штурмовиком на Запорізькому напрямку. Після проблем
Right. So it says he was actually Sergey was an infantryman in Zaporizhzhia. Not just an infantryman, but I think assaultman. Probably he means light infantry in the counteroffensive. He had some health issues, was sent away to learn the Bradley. I suspect he may have been wounded.
зі здоров'ям його опановувати Бредлі. Того дня їхня бойова машина висунулась на підтримку саме.
Now, I'd be curious to know a lesson learned from this, because we've heard from other sources that a lot of Ukrainian armored vehicle operators and infantry support, like these Bradley, that they start their career in the infantry. And I wonder if that helps to know that the Brad operators have been combat infantrymen first. If that gives them a sense of what the guys on the ground need. I'd be really curious to know if that's protocolized. It seems like it could work out really well. But again, you would make a trade-off in that you'd have to have these infantrymen who, like want to graduate to Bradleys, but they won't have any expertise in the Bradleys themselves.
Піхоти.
Їдемо допомагати нашим хлопцям, які в окопах, тому що танк може працювати по них.
Okay, so it says their mission was actually to basically support the infantry in the trenches. It sounds like they knew there were tanks in the AO and that the tanks were causing a lot of problems for their infantry in the trenches.
Ну і тому ми мусимо виїжджати, хоч і ми ризикуємо теж. Да, страшно, дуже сильно. Но ми відпрацювали, я думаю, що ми добре відпрацювали.
Бредлі призначена для ведення бою, підтримки та транспортування піхоти. Така техніка псує плани ворога.
Дуже сильно вони хочуть нас зловити. Це небезпечна техніка.
It's interesting. He says, man, the Russians really do want to target the Bradley. They say it's dangerous. We've stopped many. And it's true. It's one of the things that I try to tell people. The Bradley, it's funny. The Bradley was not designed for this type of combat. It was meant to be a glorified bus to basically allow infantry to follow behind tanks and keep up. But what they designed accidentally, and the U.S. kind of found, with both the Striker program and then later with even MRAPs and MATVs, was that when you give light infantry a mobile, armored, elevated, armed platform, you supercharge that infantry, right? I mean, look here. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about, right? So here's here is a Brad, right? And now here is an MRAP, right? And then we'll pull up an MATV, right? These are so check these things out, right? Boom. Okay. Here is an MATV. And look at what it is. Heavily armored, super mobile, with a 360-degree turret, cameras, zooms, radio communication, the ability to hold a bunch of gear. It's pretty good, right? It's actually awesome. I mean, I tell you, we loved running MATVs. These things were a cruise 4 and you can get 4 people in there, plus put a casualty on a stretcher in the middle. Plus, you can get more in the back if you have to, but they can't get strapped in. And you can see the back here. It's actually open with these side panels that are secured. The M-ATV is just a great vehicle. You can see it's got a winch, tow hitches, and imagine you're an infantry squad, right? You can get your whole squad in here in a pinch. You can CASEVAC your casualties. You can see at night. You can reach out and touch somebody with a high degree of precision from 2,000 meters away. You have someone who sits there wherever you are and is 6 to 10 feet above you, looking down, looking over a hill. And can you see how the Bradley provides almost the exact same function, right? Same thing. There's your crew. They sit, they're elevated, they're armored. Remember, in a firefight, and we see it, a lot of guys would dismount, and this would be rolling cover, right? If you're on this side, small arms fire from the other side, not going to penetrate, not going to touch you. So you see how this can be really powerful. And right, here's another example of an MRAP. Let's see if we can just open the image here so we can show you guys. Yeah, here's an MRAP. Same idea. Heavily armored. This is even bigger and more powerful. But same thing. You can carry a whole squad in the back, 360-degree turret, elevated position, support by fire, cover, supplies. It's so powerful. And it's not what it was designed for. But when you implement it on the battlefield, it is a game changer. And the Bradley is just really good at it because it has that big punchy autocannon and all of these awesome electronic systems that let them hit with precision. Remember, this dude, this gunner with about 30 days of combat experience in the Bradley, disabled the optics, which are no bigger than this water bottle, on a T90 that was pointing right at him with a Bradley's aiming system.
Багато вже зупинили. І ще будемо зупиняти, якщо...
Рятувати бойові машини, які щойно...
So you can see this is actually like a field repair center for a Bradley. It's literally just a rando spot on the road. And you may be like, why is it so janky looking? And that's actually kind of the point, because if let's say you said, oh, let's have them put up a big tent and a big bunch of fuel barrels and all these boxes of spare parts. Well, the Russians are going to find that and they're going to blow it up. So you're better off having this mobile repair station that every couple hours changes locations. It's harder to find, harder to target.
Біля цієї бойової машини вибухнула міна, Бредлі посікло осколками. Екіпаж не ушкоджений.
Перебило. Тут перебило. Це маленьке. Машина
I
виїжджає.
love these extremely middle-aged Slavic repairmen. This is, I can't tell. This is either absolutely who I don't want working on my vehicle or the only person I want working on my vehicle.
Бригада. Ремонтуємо.
It's one of the things that's been really interesting is that Ukraine deliberately recruits older soldiers. And I think for this reason, right, I strongly would suspect that these guys are like vehicle mechanics, right? They probably know how to work on Ladas, Toyotas, BMWs, all sorts of, heavy machinery. And so for them to sit there and be like, okay, you guys have done this for 10 years. Now we're going to send you to a course. We're just going to teach you military vehicles, and then we're going to kick you back out, and that's what you're going to do. And I think that's actually might in some ways be better. Again, who would you rather have fixing your Bradley? A 40-year-old Slavic guy with a drinking problem who's been fixing foreign cars for 40 years, or a 19-year-old private also with a drinking problem and a bad vape habit, right? Who's been working for, 3 months.
Як на підстопі боліди заїжджають, приїхали, швидко відремонтували, поїхали далі.
Монтувати американські БМП ці хлопці теж їздили на навчання до Німеччини.
Нам надо полностью заменить. Или ее сейчас на той машине надо будет то же самое сделать.
Бредлі використовували здебільшого у теплих країнах. Війна у Перській
Okay, this is a mistranslation. The Bradley was, none of those are winter conditions. Gulf War, Desert Shield in Saudi Arabia, to a lesser extent in the Iraq invasion. Not really, didn't really see much use in Afghanistan. It's just the terrain is not accommodating to it. But yeah, they're all desert conditions.
Затоці операція «Щит пустелі» в Саудівській Аравії для підсилення американського контингенту в Сирії. Українські морози, зізнається Євген, додають їм роботи. Ж таки, американська техніка під наші морози не підлаштована, ні?
Скажу честно, что нет.
Сергій же разом зі мною вкотре переглядає відеозустрічі із танком. Каже, завдалий бій хотів би у відпустку.
Okay, Sergey is like, yo, dude. Okay, listen, I did my part. Please put me on leave. Remember, a lot of these guys have been fighting for years and years and years, for 2 years now, right? and there should be some kind of better. This is something that's been pretty controversial, I think, and it's so one of the things that Ukraine did in the outset of the war was they're like, listen, you're mobilized until the war's over. They were thinking 6 months, but now that we're at 2 years, they have to do something called force generation or force sustainment, and that means that you have to find a way to give people a break in the fighting, right? And in the Second World War, there was a point system where basically the more combat you saw, the more you were wounded, the more high risk operations you partook in, the more points you acquired. And when you had enough points, your service was considered complete. It was kind of a Byzantine system. But in Vietnam, it was a time-based system. You got drafted, you had a certain period of training, you were expected to serve in country for 12 months, and then you were rotated home. And those things, while they had their downsides, they created an environment in which, no soldier is going to be able to keep up morale if they believe that their only way out of a war is in a body bag. And so I think for Ukraine, I think that's why a lot of their young men have left the country instead of serving in the military, because serving in the military, they're like, that is a death sentence, right? Like, I will fight until I am killed. And you can't do that. And the Ukrainians, I think, are seeing that. They need a system where they say, listen, okay, we're going to, something where they start phasing things out and they say, listen, we're going to bring in this brigade. We're going to train them up. They're going to go to the front line for a year, for 12 months. And then they're going to get rotated out for another brigade. That way, and, have some sort of individual soldier policy that says you do a year, you get a year off. Something so that Ukraine can sustain this war, and so it can offer the Ukrainian men who fled the knowledge that they can complete service and serve their country without it being, till the end.
Щоб нарешті взяти шлюб із коханою.
Планував, думав, може мені за цього хоч
Right, he wants to get married, man. That's a noble cause.
вже офіційно. Ще про це ніхто не розмовляв.
Та поки що з побратимом завтра він готується на чергове бойове завдання.
Oh, man. And tomorrow he's going back out again. Poor guy. Anyway, guys, if you want to see my breakdown of this entire combat footage, it's actually going to be on my site dropping Tuesday on combatvetnews.com. I can't show combat footage on YouTube, but I can on my own personal site. So if you want to support what I do, if you believe in it, twice a week I find the most viral combat footage from Gaza, Ukraine, Burkina Faso, wherever, and we do a deep dive analysis. And of course, we watch the uncensored combat footage. So if you want to support us, man, check it out, combatvetnews.com. And of course, a huge thanks to everybody. Hit like and subscribe. Tell the YouTube algorithm this is good content, and I will see you lads in the next one. Cheers.